Okay, parents, here it is, me, Mr. Wandrum again, and I'm going to try to give you guys a little bit of help with fractions. I'm sure we know fractions because we use them all the time, whether we're cooking at home or whenever. We use fractions in our lives quite a bit, but I want to make sure the kids understand the steps that it takes. A lot of times when they're trying to do simplest form, they try to take a shortcut, and taking a shortcut is not such a good idea because sometimes you get a different fraction, but you don't necessarily get it in its simplest form, which means it's in the final form and it can't be reduced any smaller. Right here we have the fraction 9/12. Now our first step is to find what are the factors of 9. So we go 1 times 9, 3 times 3. Now we see the factors of 9 are 1, 3, and 9. Now, this fraction is a simple one, so I'm just going to show you the steps with the simple one. But some kids might be able to look at 9 and 12 and know automatically that 3 is going to be the greatest common factor. But when it gets harder and the numbers get bigger, then these are the steps that you want to follow and you don't want to skip. So here you go, 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4, and then you write them out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. Now you notice both lists have 3. So 3 is the GCF, or greatest common factor. Once you know that, you know you can divide the top and the bottom by 3. So 3 goes into 9 3 times, 3 goes into 12 4 times. So 9/12 put in its simplest form is actually 3/4. Another way they'll see it is they'll get a fraction like 9/12 and they'll say reduce. Reduce and simplify, or simplest form, mean the same thing. They're synonyms, so they mean the same thing. Okay? The second thing we're talking about is how you make an equivalent fraction. Well, to make an equivalent fraction, you can either multiply or you can divide. Okay? The only rule is you have to make sure if you multiply, for example, let's say you're going to multiply by 2. You can multiply by any number. You'll have to multiply 2 times the top and 2 times the bottom. So 4 times 2 is 8, 6 times 2 is 12, and that tells you that 4/6 and 8/12 are equivalent. So as long as you multiply the top, which is the numerator, and the denominator, both by the same number, you're automatically going to get an equivalent fraction. The other way is to divide. Now if you divide, that's the same thing as the last slide we did, which was to reduce or to simplify. Okay? If you look at these, you'll see 4 and 6 are both even. When they're even numbers, you know automatically they can be divided by 2. So you have to divide, what you divide into the top, you have to divide into the bottom. So the rule is always going to be, if you're going to multiply, multiply the top and the bottom by the same exact number. If you're going to divide, divide the top and the bottom by the same exact number. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So now you know 4/6 is equivalent to 8/12, and it's also equivalent to 2/3. But 2/3 is 4/6 in its simplest form. 8/12 is just another way to write 4/6. So those are equivalent fractions. The next one we have is changing a mixed number to an improper fraction. If you notice here, this is a mixed number because it has a whole number and it also has a fraction. The steps are simple. You take the denominator, the number on the bottom, you multiply it times the whole number, so we go 4 times 1, and then we add it to the numerator, so you go 4 times 1 is 4, 4 plus 3 is 7, so you get 7/4. So you go the denominator times the whole number, and then you add the numerator. And I tell the kids, you start here and you go clockwise, multiply and then add in the same direction that a clock does, and your denominator stays the same. Okay, on this slide we have an improper fraction. Any fraction that has a numerator that is the same or greater than the denominator is called an improper fraction. This one is 10/9. The numerator is bigger than the denominator. So I was teaching the kids that 10/9 actually means 10 divided by 9. Okay, so you put a 10 inside the bracket as your dividend. Your divisor is going to be 9. 9 goes into 10 once. 1 times 9 is 9. 10 minus 9 is 1. Now when we write our answer down, our answer was 1. But we also had 1 left over out of 9. So just like that clockwise rule again, 1 and 1/9. So that's our final answer, 1 and 1/9. We had an improper fraction, now we have a mixed number. On the next slide, we have changing fractions from greatest, putting them in the greatest order or putting them in the smallest order. You're finding the greatest or smallest fraction. Okay, you notice these are hard to compare because they have different denominators. So common sense might tell us which one is the bigger one or the smaller one, but the correct way to do it is to change them to have the same denominator. So what I do is I put the number 2, the number 3, and the number 4 down here. I write my 2's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 3, 6, 9, 12, 4, 8, 12. Now I see these two have 12, so if I go one more time with my 2, I'll have 12. That shows me that 12 is the least common multiple, or the LCM. If I rename these fractions or change them all to have 12, then it will be easier for me to put them in order. So I'm going to erase these. I found my least common multiple, which is 12. I'm going to go back over here. Notice my hurricane colors here because I'm a hurricane fan. We're going to go 3 times 4 equals 12. What we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. 1 times 4 is 4. So now we know 1/3 is 4/12. We're going to change this to have a 12. 4 times 3 is 12. 3 times 3 is 9. And then this one we're going to make have a 12. 2 times 6 is 12. 1 times 6 is 6. So now we know 1/3 is 4/12. 3/4 is 9/12, and 1/2 is 6/12. If we were going to put them greatest order, we'd say, I'll put a G for greatest. 9/12 is bigger than the other two, so I'd say 3/4 is the greatest one. 1/2 would be next, and the smallest one would be 1/3. If I wanted to put them in order from least, obviously I'd go 1/3, 1/2, and then the biggest one is 3/4. Now in the next one, is finding which fraction is less than, greater than, or equal to. You notice here we have a mixed number, and on this one we have an improper fraction. So the best thing we can do is either change both of these to an improper fraction or change them both to a mixed number. I think it's easier to change them to a mixed number. That's what I do. So we have 8/2. We learned earlier you divide 2 into 8. It goes 4 times. So now you know with no remainder, it just goes 4 times. So this is actually equal to 4. So 3 and 1/2 is going to be less than 4. On this one, we have 3 and 2/5 as a mixed number, and then an improper fraction of 17/5. If you divide 5 into 17, you get 3. 3 times 5 is 15. Subtract, you get 2. So this is actually 3 wholes and 2/5. If you look at this one, it's also 3 wholes and 2/5, so we know they're equal. Now if you decided, hey, I don't want to change the improper fraction to a mixed number, I want to change it the other way, if you remember the steps we did before, you go 5 times 3 is 15, 15 plus 2 is 17, so this is 17/5. And either way, you see they're both equal. Okay, and that's the end of this math tutorial. Hopefully this will help you with comparing fractions, comparing or ordering fractions. If you find that something on here is confusing or you need more information, be sure to email me. I'll help you anytime I can.